metals, minerals, food, water. And we know that such resources are essential, but the truth is that day in and day out, we waste them. Material use has more than tripled over the past 50 years. We generate more than 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste every year. And we are throwing away our chances of a better future. Unsustainable consumption and production drives climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, and pollution, obviously. The International Day of Zero Waste is a reminder that our planet cannot keep endlessly giving up resources and receiving pollution in return. And we can't keep letting poorly managed waste compromise people's health. So moving to zero waste society starts with reducing the size of the problem. And that means redesigning and repurposing and reusing products so that materials stay in the economy longer. This is what UNEP hopes to see from the instrument on plastic pollution, which is under negotiation. And that instrument could inspire stronger commitments within the plastic sector, but certainly also way beyond. We also need investments in recycling and in waste collection and in sorting. This is equally important for the transition to net zero. To meet the goals of the Paris Agreement by 2050, we know that the world will need 3 billion tons of energy transition minerals and metals. Instead of hauling them out of the ground, we can recover them from our own waste. Zero waste makes sense on every level. Keeping materials in the economy and bolstering waste management will lead to enormous financial savings. And it will also prevent greenhouse gas emissions and, of course, avoid damage to the nature that sustains us and reduce ill health and deaths that is caused by waste. On this International Day of Zero Waste, let us remember this. Nature doesn't waste, and nor should we.
Welcome, everyone. I am Mario Galbert. I am the moderator for today's session. Thank you for attending International Youth Forum titled Zero Waste Futures, Youth Leadership and Solutions from the Asia Pacific to the Caribbean. This webinar is dedicated to the celebration of International Day of Zero Waste 2024. In line with the United Nations General Assembly UNGA resolution adopted in December 2022, designating March 30th as International Day of Zero Waste, this event aims to promote zero waste practices and upstream solutions, raise awareness of zero waste initiatives, facilitate networking opportunities, introduce UNEP's Global Waste Management Outlook 2024, which is very interesting, and you'll hear more about that today. The event is organized by the UNEP Caribbean Sub-Regional Office under the EU-funded project Zero Waste in the Caribbean, New Waste, New Waves, and its partners, as well as the International Environment Technology Center and the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. So today, again, I want to thank you all for joining. If you're not speaking, please put your mics on mute. You're also free to open up your cameras. For this event, we will now start with a message or feedback on opening remarks, from Ludovic Bernard, who currently serves as Head of Knowledge and Risk at UNEP.
Thank you. Thank you, and good day, everyone. I know it's very early for some and very late for others. It's great that we have 140 participants on the call. It shows the importance that we attach to this issue of waste. I am standing for Jacqueline Alvarez, the head of the Chemicals and Health branch in UNEP, who unfortunately is sick today. So she asked me to make this introductory notes. As we've heard from the executive director of UNEP just now, waste significantly contributes to the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity, and nature loss, and pollution. Humanity generates over 2 billion tons of municipal solid waste annually, the ED told us. However, this number, as frightening as it may be, is often, we can also qualify it with even more worrying trends. A significant portion of this collected waste, about up to 25%, is not even collected from where it's generated. So it lays there in the environment. Of the waste that is collected, again, a portion is not also dumped into controlled landfill. It's dumped into the environment in uncontrolled facilities that promotes the leaching of this waste into the environment, its transformation into hazardous compounds, and creating even more damage to the environment. A lot of people don't even have access to waste collection, as we've mentioned, a lot in rural areas. And therefore, we need to shift our relation to waste. And the International Day of Zero Waste promotes the importance of sustainable consumption and production patterns, and encourage the societal shift towards a life cycle approach concerning waste. Beyond bolstering waste management, it focuses on framing waste as a resource, and that's where the key is. We need to understand, we need to change the way we consume products, that we consume less products. We consume products that are better, that are easier to recycle. And at the end of life, we ensure that the recycling is happening. It creates this way, waste can be a resource. It is estimated that the government can save up to $70 billion by managing waste in this approach. It can also create a number of jobs, 700,000 jobs, it is estimated, and therefore it creates employment by dealing with waste properly. In UNEP, we are acting on this issue, and we have the International Environment Technology Center in our branch that is based in Osaka in Japan, that deals with, that has the mandate to work and promote exchanges between regions, promote good examples in terms of waste management. In the ITC, together with UNEP at UNEA 6 last month, launched the Global Waste Management Outlook, which we will hear about in a minute. And this is a way to promote better and more efficient waste management practices. To manage this waste and to manage it properly, we need all the stakeholders on board. We need the private sector, of course, but we need youth groups, because young activists and advocates are committed to creating sustainable and pollution-free worlds. And that's why we're here to talk about today. Finally, I will point out that the International Day of Zero Waste, as was mentioned by our executive director, promotes the importance of sustainable consumption and frame waste as a resource, as I mentioned. Without these actions, we will not achieve the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So we need to change our practice. We need stakeholders on board, and we need to learn from good practices. We need to exchange between regions, and that's what we'll hear about today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lenkiewic, representing UNEP's office. At this point in time, we'll now hand over to Mr. Vincent Sweeney, the head of the UNEP Caribbean Sub-Regional Office. Mr. Sweeney, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, depending on where you are. I'm very pleased to be here representing United Nations Environment Program, Caribbean Sub-Regional Office, at this initiative to celebrate the International Day of Zero Waste, which will be held on the 30th of March. I believe this initiative, organized by UNEP's International Environmental Technology Center, as you've heard already, as well as UNEP's Caribbean Sub-Regional Office, which I represent, under the European Union-funded project entitled Zero Waste in the Caribbean, New Ways, and in collaboration with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States and the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. I believe this is a very meaningful event. Its purpose is to discuss the environmental issues of waste and to mobilize all initiatives and actions to offer sustainable alternatives to all possible actors which can improve environmental protection and nature conservation, not only here in the Caribbean, but all over the world. Today, I want to raise a matter of utmost importance: the engagement and empowerment of youth in achieving the ambitious goal of zero waste. Furthermore, I wish to highlight the significance of celebrating the UN's International Day for Zero Waste. In our modern world, where environmental challenges loom large and the consequences of our actions become increasingly evident, the concept of zero waste has emerged as a beacon of hope. You would have heard already that humanity generates between 2.1 and 2.3 billion, not million, billion tons of municipal solid waste annually. Yet only 62% of this waste is managed properly. It's therefore necessary to embody a vision where our societies produce little to no waste, minimizing our impact on the planet and securing a sustainable future for generations to come. Yet, achieving this goal requires concerted efforts from all sectors of society, and my colleagues have already mentioned some of that. And perhaps most importantly, active involvement of our youth. Why focus on youth, you might ask? The answer is simple. They are the leaders of tomorrow. They are the ones who will inherit the earth we leave behind, and it's imperative that we equip them with the knowledge, skills, and passion necessary to tackle the environmental challenges that lie ahead. Engaging youth in the zero waste movement not only ensures a smoother transition towards sustainable practices, but also fosters a sense of responsibility and stewardship that will last a lifetime. Empowering youth to take action on zero waste involves more than just educating them about recycling or composting. It requires creating spaces where their voices are heard, where their ideas are valued, and where they are given the opportunity to drive meaningful change in their communities. Whether it's through school programs, youth-led initiatives, or grassroots activism, we must provide our young people with the platforms they need to become agents of change in the fight against waste. But why dedicate a specific day to zero waste? The United Nations International Zero Waste Day serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of this cause on a global scale. It's a day to reflect on our progress towards zero waste, to celebrate the achievements of individuals and organizations making a difference, and to renew our commitment to a sustainable future. By commemorating this day, we not only raise awareness about the urgency of the zero waste movement, but we also inspire others, hopefully, to join the cause and take actions in their own communities. So as we are gathered here today, let us reaffirm our commitment to engaging and empowering youth in the journey towards zero waste, not only in the Caribbean, as I said before, but around the world. Let us recognize the immense potential the youth holds as catalysts for change and pledge to support them every step of the way. And let us celebrate the United Nations International Zero Waste Day, not just as a date on the calendar, but as a symbol of determination to create a world is no longer a burden or cutting as a resource to cherish and preserve. So in closing, I urge each and every one of you to consider the role you can play in empowering youth and advancing the zero waste agenda. Together, let us turn the tide on waste and build a future where sustainability is a very common and understood word. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, I would like to convey best wishes for a successful initiative, congratulate those who have been involved in its organization, and reiterate that we at UNEP stand ready to assist you all in any way that we can. Thank you very much, and best wishes for us. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent Sweeney. Of course, our two opening speakers already, gave remarks challenging us to contribute towards zero waste futures, highlighting that, contributing towards zero waste means that we can save up to 70 billion, create jobs, and of course, create a sustainable future for all. At this time, we will now run into our first session, which focuses on an overview of Zero Waste Initiative. At this time, we will have a video recorded video by Zoe, and this we will have Aditi Ramola, who will stay back with us to answer all questions about the video. Please, over to you, Zoe. So we will have the video recording by Zoe, who is the lead author of the Global Waste Management Outlook 2024. And this video, you'll get a more insightful presentation as to what the discussion is about and what the Global Waste Management Outlook is about. So please listen carefully.
Hello, my name is Zoe Lenkiewic, and I'm the lead author of the Global Waste Management Outlook 2024. For this report, we took the most up-to-date waste data that we could find, and what we discovered was that there's no country on Earth that has managed to decouple, so separate, economic growth from waste generation. This means the more money we have, the more we buy, and the more we buy, the more waste we generate. We decided to explore 3 different scenarios to see what the future might hold. The first scenario, waste management as usual, assumes that we're going to keep buying, using, and throwing away much the same as we do today. The waste under control scenario is kind of a halfway house, with some measures to prevent waste and some increase in recycling. And finally, the circular economy scenario assumes that we've done really well at preventing waste, we're collecting all of the waste that is generated, and we're recycling as much as we possibly can. So then we wanted to understand, what's all this actually costing us? Now, we looked at the waste management services, the collection, the recycling, the disposal, and at the moment it's costing about $252 billion every year. But that's not the whole story, because it doesn't include these hidden costs in terms of climate change, ecosystem harm, and harm to human health. Now, when we factored in these hidden costs, or externalities as they're sometimes called, the figure for 2020 came out at a cost of $361 billion every year, just on waste and its mismanagement. Now, of course, then we projected forward to 2050, and we found that under this waste management as usual scenario, the total cost, including these hidden costs, every year would be $640 billion every year, just on our waste. It's an extraordinary figure. Now, the waste under control scenario, where we introduced some waste prevention and some more recycling, that still comes out at a cost of $270 billion every year. Finally, the circular economy scenario was the only scenario that presented a net gain. So we could actually be saving $108 billion every year if we could get waste prevention really effective and be recycling as much as we possibly can. So the first Global Waste Management Outlook was published in 2015, and it carried similar messages to this one. So why has progress been so slow since then? Well, we looked at some of these barriers, and we found that, first of all, policymakers are often not really aware of these hidden costs. Unless we can see those costs actually in a numerical form, it can be difficult to prioritise waste management. Secondly, women and the informal sector are often excluded from decision-making around waste, which doesn't make sense because they are often the most knowledgeable about waste generation, waste prevention, and recycling. Next, we looked at enforcement and penalties. Basically, we need better regulations, and we need to be implementing those regulations strictly. And finally, we looked at whether polluters are paying or changing. So big companies that are generating, putting these materials onto markets, if those materials are not recyclable, or if they're using far more than they need to, then there are measures to help incentivize better behavior. But really, we need to make sure that these measures are mandatory, not voluntary, because voluntary measures just haven't been working. What are the recommended pathways from the report? Well, first of all, we'd like to see data and digitalization harnessed more. We live in a digital age, and there are many tools like apps, mobile phone apps, that are enabling people to access waste management services for the first time. There's all sorts of exciting things happening with AI and sorting technologies. So really, the world is our oyster when it comes to digitalization of waste prevention and recycling. Next, we'd like to introduce mandatory schemes to ensure that polluters pay, because this is the best way to incentivize businesses to design their products and services in a way that don't generate so much waste. Next, we recommend adopting inclusive approaches to engage citizens, particularly younger people, because you are the service users and the service designers of the future. We'd like to integrate the principles of a just transition into decision making. Now, a just transition is all about human rights, making sure that as we develop these new systems to prevent waste and recycle more, that we leave nobody behind, particularly the vulnerable and marginalised communities that are already least likely to have access to services. And finally, we'd like governments to build their own national expertise in waste management, so that people from each country can design waste prevention and waste management systems that meet the needs of the local population. Right, well, that's the report in a nutshell. I'm going to leave you with this final statement. Pollution from waste knows no borders, so it is in everyone's interests to commit to waste prevention and invest in waste management where it is lacking. The solutions are available and ready to be scaled up. What's needed now is strong leadership to set the direction and pace required, and to ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you for listening. Now let's move together for a waste-free world.
Thank you very much to Zoe, who is the lead author of the Global Waste Management Outlook. Earlier, we'll have Aditi, who will stay back with us in the question and answer segment to answer all questions regarding the Global Waste Management Outlook, which was just presented by Zoe. So after three presentations, we will have After three presentations, we'll have question and answer segment. And now we'll go over to Ms. King, Shanta King, who will do a presentation now on the status of waste management and pollution in the Caribbean region. Zero waste in the Caribbean, new ways, new ways, new waves. Over to you, Ms. King.
Thank you, Mario. Can you hear me very clearly?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, thank you. I will try to give a Caribbean dimension of all that we've been listening to so far. I will go into a bit more detail of a new program, well, project/program that we've started recently, entitled Zero Waste in the Caribbean, New Ways, New Waves. We have a number of partners, as you can see here. I'll go into a bit more of it a little later. Could we go to the next slide, please? Okay, the status of waste management and pollution in the Caribbean. In terms of an overview, the Caribbean region is facing a growing waste management problem, with millions of tons of solid waste being produced each year. And this issue is exacerbated year after year. Inadequate waste collection and problematic disposal techniques also enhance financial, environmental, and public health risks. One of the major issues as well is a lack of comprehensive data, which prevents an understanding of the region's waste profile. Earlier, we heard quite a bit in terms of statistics on a global level as it relates to waste management. But for the Caribbean, because of an absence of data collection systems, information systems, sometimes we are unable to quantify quite accurately the actual problem. Evaluating and improving current legislation also is a pivotal step. And again, you know, there's a degree of disjointedness and lack of cooperation among waste management entities, which hampers enforcement and monitoring initiatives. There's a need for integration and collaboration among waste management agencies, and this is essential to effectively addressing the waste crisis and mitigate its multifaceted impacts on the Caribbean region. One of the things that we need to bear in mind is that for us, our environment in many of the islands is our economy. Many of the islands basically utilize the tourism actually ends up into the sea. This is a major issue for us from an economic standpoint as well as an environmental standpoint. So the whole issue of waste management is something that is very critical to us in many respects. I will now go on to a video which will give you a little more insight into the issue on a regional basis.
This is just an innocent looking plastic bottle, but when multiplied 1,000,000 times over, it is disastrous for the sustainability of marine ecosystems, marine-dependent livelihoods and sectors, public health, and our very economies of the OECS member states. It becomes one of the biggest challenges to the marine environment, our very survival, and the promise of a blue economy. Today, we are on a lovely beach, the front lines, helping in some small way to rid our oceans of plastic.
Why wouldn't we care? One Caribbean sea, all belong here. One Caribbean sea.
Did you know that the volume of microplastics in the ocean rivals the number of stars in the galaxy? Annually, the world generates over 300 million metric tons of plastic waste, half of which ends up in the ocean. The Caribbean has been accused of making the greatest per capita contribution to this ocean plastic. Not a good narrative. This is where we live, work, and play. I'm Dr. Ramola Murray. Join me and the OECS Commission and their team as we work to prioritize and change this narrative through education, lifestyle change, and journalism.
Artists and journalists are some of the most influential gatekeepers in this new electronic age.
For many islands, familiar connections, sharing resources, one economy. More than just islands, a civilization of history and culture and shared destiny. Why wouldn't we care? One Caribbean sea, all belong here. One economy, making future sense of our present tense. We're giving it all we are.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that video played very well. My internet is not the best, so it broke up for a moment there, but we could also make the videos available to you. Basically, it just gave you a snapshot of some of the challenges that we are facing here in the Caribbean. In response to that, we have this new program started in 2022, and it's the Zero Waste in the Caribbean program, supported and financed by the European Union in collaboration with CARIFORUM. And we have a number of partners. We also have financing by the German corporation, the Ministry of Technical Cooperation. We have implementing partners, the Agence Française de Développement, AFD, the GIZ, and UNEP are implementing partners. And also the AFD component is being supported by the OECS. So we have quite a bit in terms of partnerships, and as such, the project really is covering a wide region, 16 countries in the region. So the participating countries range from Belize in Central America to Cuba, Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Suriname. Next. Okay, in terms of the program objectives, the overall objective of the program really is to strengthen the EU-Caribbean partnership for cooperation in the field of circular economy in general and in solid waste in particular. And the intention here is to improve resource efficiency of Caribbean economies. In so doing, we expect to better align solid waste management systems in the Caribbean countries with circular economy principles. And this is the key point here. Incorporating circular economy principles and also weaving in the nationally determined contributions and to make them more able to attract investments, make the countries more able to attract investments. So in terms of expected outcomes, one of the key areas that we are looking at is the legal and strategic frameworks, because as you could imagine, if one is now looking at incorporating circular economy principles, then, you know, certain aspects of legislations may need modification to facilitate that happening. We're looking at the capacity for sustainable consumption and sustainable waste management. To that end, we have a number of demonstration projects that are ongoing in selected areas. We're looking at investment opportunities. As you could imagine, you know, it's not easy to simply say that we are going to incorporate circular economy principles, but from an investment standpoint, you know, significant financing is required to facilitate these initiatives. One of the key aspects of any of these undertakings is that of awareness, public education, and this is something that we are incorporating in all aspects of this project. Next. As mentioned before, we have three major groupings from an implementation standpoint. So we have AFD supported by OECS, and then we have the GIZ basically focusing on the Dominican Republic and certain locations in Central America. And then we have UNEP dealing with some other areas on the legal and investment side of it. Next. From a point of view of the activities, I will try to just, go through this, fairly quickly. We have a brochure that we are going to put in the chat so you have a little more detail. The AFD OECS component, as I mentioned before, that component has two major facets or subcomponents. One, to generate an OECS model and to have a number of pilot or demonstration projects. So that is ongoing. The two demonstration projects are in Grenada and St. Vincent. In addition, there are a number of public awareness campaigns and programs, and the videos that you've just seen are part of the AFD OECS component, public education and public awareness campaign. Then we have the GIZ supported component called Circular Caribbean. And in terms of geographical region, the focus really is on the Dominican Republic. So a number of initiatives are ongoing here. So we have here Output One, where they've had a number of regional exchanges with other parts of the Caribbean. They have been doing a lot of work with respect to the private sector, looking at the management of plastic in the Dominican Republic through private sector involvement. Then we have Output 3, where there have been a number of pilot initiatives within the DR. And Output 4, again, public awareness and public education as it relates to the issues at hand. Next, under the UNEP pillar or UNEP component of this project, we have three main outputs. The first one is looking at strengthening solid waste management, legal and strategic frameworks. The second one is to look at the whole issue of knowledge and capacity to deliver information-based policy action. So here we're looking more at data collection and information systems. And the third output is that of enhanced coordination and cooperation, policy dialogue, and increased awareness. As we could all attest to, there's a need for dialogue, there's a need for buy-in at various levels so that we can transform this sector. Next slide, please. Okay, here we'll share with you again one of our Recycle OECS videos that again tries to give you an insight into the issues and to basically make the public a bit more aware of those issues and the part they can play in terms of transforming the waste management into a more circular economy initiative.
You came and found it clean.
You frolicked in it, you thrived on it. And no matter what flag or latitude, our economies depend on it.
Yet look at you, out the window.
Mindlessly tossed, carelessly dumped, anywhere. Think it just evaporates because you don't see it? Rivers,
Gutters,
dump sites.
our blue waters unite us.
Each singular act multiplies the pollution that plagues us, that
Threatens the green and blue that sustains us.
But we can alter this cause.
If we put waste to work, not dumpable,
Bankable.
reuse it,
Repurpose it.
recycle it.
Create jobs. Build industries.
It takes just you
You and me.
to translate green actions into blue oceans.
If given a chance, your plastic would choose to be put to more beneficial use. Choose recycling.
Thank you. Okay, so in conclusion, we will share with you a project brochure that gives you a little more insight into the progress we've made to date The project runs for another 2 years. So the brochure will just give you a basic overview in terms of progress to date, and we will share that with you. And again, we would have your contact information, so please feel free to exchange with us at any point in time. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish everybody a very pleasant and good webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. King. Of course, everyone, Ms. King, Shanta King is the regional project coordinator for the Zero Waste in the Caribbean project based in the UNEP Caribbean Sub-Regional Office in Kingston, Jamaica. At this time, we hand over the presentation, and I must say before I even go that was a very good presentation from the Caribbean region, particularly looking at the concept of circular economy and also building in people's capacity on, towards zero waste, building awareness. And of course, I'm speaking about sustainable waste management, sustainable consumption, of course, promoting what in my idea, a sustainable lifestyle. We now hand over to Miss Maria Hughes, who is an Associate Program Management Officer at the UNEP UNEP Regional Offices Asia and the Pacific. And now hand over to you. She will present on the status of waste management and pollution in the Asia Pacific region. Over to you, Ms. Maria.
Thank you very much, Mario, and thank you for having me here today. I have to say, well, regards from the future, regards from Bangkok, exactly 12 hours ahead of Kingston. Indeed, I hope the music from the previous presentation gave you a good level of energy, one could say. But indeed, my name is Maria Hughes, and I work at the UNEP Asia Pacific Regional Office on circular economy issues. And in that way, I will be continuing from what also has been discussed in the previous presentations. I hope you can see my screen. And I'll be giving a very broad overview of kind of the different approaches that we've taken in the Asia Pacific region with UNEP, in part through UNEP's work, and then in partnership with our with our partners that are in a way or in another work towards addressing zero waste. But first of all, I would actually like to approach this from a bit of a life cycle approach. So a bit of the background thinking of when keeping materials at Hughes at their highest possible value for as long as possible, we can both increase the value of materials and reduce the waste, and thriving and driving towards zero waste future. And this is in a way also, one could say, a bit of the core idea of the circular economy, which is a bit what I focus on strongly. Now, this is a very simple graphic. I like it because it shows the differences very well. I mean, in reality, I think if you were listening to those presentation, you could hear that, well, what's the business as usual case? Well, what happens if recycling is increased? And then what actually happens if recycling is significantly increased and we enter a so-called circular economy. Now, the idea of a circular economy, of course, lies in the fact of that through approaches to reduce waste, and one could say design out waste from the beginning of the life cycle, from ensuring that products are repairable, products can be used for more than once, they last long, they can be resold, etc., etc. We can reduce the overall generation of waste. The reality will not be completely waste-free, but it also builds upon what was found in the Global Waste Management Outlook on how what are the economic benefits of one could say designing out waste. But then if we look at what's the situation, one could say in Asia and the Pacific region. So the global population the global population is at the moment about 7 billion, expected to grow to 9 billion. The Asia Pacific region is home for more than half of that population. Our region, if we look at, covers, or UNEP covers 41 countries in this region, which means countries, some of the most populous countries in the world, some of the countries with smallest populations, having small island developing states, having middle income countries, having some of the most industrialized countries. So the diversity is there. However, what we can see are certain trends, as said, on economic development being aligned with increasing consumption, which then aligns with increasing waste generation. There's a growing middle class, which causes changes and increases in consumption patterns. And then there's a perspective food. I mean, today we won't be focusing specifically on food waste, but there is an increasing consumption of biomass, partly due to, well, increased food waste, food loss, partly due to the increased population and also changes in dietary patterns. So you can see a trend in changes in consumption that will also impact the generation of waste in the region. Now then, if we look a bit more of the waste side of things, well, continuing with kind of the direct result from increasing consumption is actually that from 2009 to 2030 in Asia and the Pacific, the middle income consumer spending was expected to grow by more than 500%, which is a figure that one can digest for a bit, but it's significantly higher than anywhere else in the globe. So in 2009, Asia and the Pacific was not yet the biggest, was not in its highest in its middle income consumer spending rates, but in 2050, it is expected to be so. Then if we look at waste collection, only 30% of the population in Eastern and Southeastern Asia are actually not served by municipal waste, solid waste collection at the point now. The situation in the rural areas is even worse. Less than 50% of rural municipal waste is collected in Asia and the Pacific. And then this is not new, but only 9% of the region's waste is recycled. So what are we then at UNEP doing to address this increased consumption, increased generation of waste? Well, our main goal is UNEP here in the region works to reduce waste and pollution by increasing circularity across sectors to address the triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. We work with governments across the region, depending on focusing, of course, on their needs, with other stakeholders, such as major groups and stakeholders, to develop and implement policies for waste management and circularity. For example, the extended producer responsibility. We're working with academia and science partners to ensure that the policy development relies on latest, reliable, and accurate information and science. We focus on capacity building, skills development, and awareness raising among our stakeholders, both in the region and, of course, also globally. And I think the videos from the previous presentations were excellent examples of this. Well, then specifically, what we kind of look at kind of some examples of our ongoing initiatives that actually feed into a zero waste future in high impact sectors. First of all, plastics. Plastics is globally a major issue, and in this region, it is very important, with many of the countries in this region being major producers of plastic pollution and or victims of producers of plastics and or victims of plastic pollution. So this is a topic that is taken very, very seriously. And we're focusing on it around policy developments, EPR, as told earlier, data and monitoring, the existing data gaps, the lack of reliable and comparable data makes it very difficult to assess actions against plastic pollution. We've done a lot of work in plastic pollution in the riverine environment, just so that the pollution can be tackled before entering into the marine environment. Focusing on just transition, working with the informal sector, as Zoe explained in her presentation, the involvement of communities involved in vulnerable conditions, women, and informal waste pickers is extremely important. As a tangible next step of what, if you want to learn more about our work on plastic pollution in the region, actually 17 to 18 September, our flagship event on plastics to create and developing solutions to address plastics in the marine environment. Sea of Solutions will be organized. Warmly inviting everyone to follow the development around that, and actually also provide some input on potential topics that could be addressed during Sea of Solutions. So I've added a link to a survey that the organizers still have open, where they are gathering some input. Then we are also working cross-cuttingly across sectors on green jobs and green skills. And here, in a way, what are the opportunities that the zero waste future and a circular economy actually provide? How can we realize these opportunities by increasing green skills, creating green jobs, and incentivizing circular business operations, while of course ensuring a just transition. Now, under the green jobs zero waste event on the 29th of March here in Thailand. And then we have a bunch of work going on in other high impact sectors, on textiles, regarding kind of work on SME level to industry level to policymakers, regarding cooling systems, ensuring the recirculation of cooling, of reducing the pollution from cooling systems, and also focusing on natural cooling systems, on food production, both sustainable food systems and reducing food loss and food waste, on transportation and mobility, just to mention a few. As a last slide, or before ending, I've added a few links on if you want to sign up for newsletters, learn more about the focus areas here, please, I recommend to check these out, and also, of course, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very, very much from my side. And maybe as a final note, I have this lovely picture of apples and grapes and tomatoes as a background. And this was partly because now today we are, of course, talking about a lot of actions and initiatives for zero waste across organizations and across communities. But actually, from a perspective of from an individual perspective, when driving for sustainable lifestyles, changes in food patterns actually is one of the most impactful ways that you and I, as an individual, can actually reduce our environmental footprint. So this includes reducing food waste, avoiding food loss, and also some dietary choices. Thank you very, very much. And Mario, over to you.
Thank you very much, Maria. I must say we had 3 lovely presentations, starting with the presentation by Zoe, which gives us an overview of the global waste management outlook. And then we had presentation from Shanta, who gave us the Caribbean perspective on zero waste management. Then we went back to Bangkok from UNEP's office with Maria, who gave us an overview. At this point in time, we are now at the question and answer segment. We have still here with us Aditi. Will give answer any question on the global waste management outlook. We still have Shanta, who's Miss King, and Maria here. So if you do have any questions on any of these three presentations, we're now going to ask you to do them. Ask them in the chat, and then we'll directly respond to them immediately. So the first question I see here is from an anonymous participant is, how can this project be replicated in other regions, especially in regions that lack proper waste management system? And I believe that was for Ms. Shanta. That's when the question first came in. And then we have one from BCRC, China's Guguan. How to recognize priority tasks for different cities in Asia and the Pacific to conduct zero waste initiative. Thank you. Some cities are facing the problem to collect all MSWS and to hesitate to implement zero waste strategy without enough funding. So that's not a question, but a comment. Again, I think the first question, if any other presenters want to respond directly to that, is how can this project be replicated in other regions, especially in regions that lack proper waste management systems? I'm not sure if Ms. King or Maria wants to respond to those because they both had presentations.
If I could just give a few ideas, Mario.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
I think I might have mentioned that our project, the OECS component, there's some demonstration projects or pilots where they actually have plastic collection, for example, or waste management collection systems that they're trying to introduce into some of the countries. In some cases, we are working with governments to augment their legislation to allow them a little more latitude with respect to waste management. The Recycle OECS component, for example, the intention is to develop a model that we are hoping can be replicated in other islands in the Caribbean. So what I would say, I mean, the same way we learn from other regions, again, we are developing a model that could be studied because it's important to determine the applicability of the model, whether it is suitable for your region. But again, we are doing a number of pilot initiatives that I would say can be reviewed and the applicability determined for other areas, other regions of the world.
Thank you very much, Ms. King. We have another question from another participant goes like this: how can the findings and recommendations on the outlook, which is the global waste management outlook, be reflected in policies? And I think this one goes to Aditi. Aditi, if you're still here and can respond to this question directly, that would be great.
Hi, Mario. Have you seen I've answered the question in the chat? Is that the one you're talking about?
Okay. Yes.
Exactly.
If you can, I'm not sure if everyone is.
Yes, absolutely. No, it's a great question. And what we've noticed is, firstly, I think Zoe mentioned it as well, is that data on the ground is severely lacking. And even when we do find data, it's not always accurate. And we always have to take what has been reported by the countries and so on. And because of that lack of data, what we've seen is that cities and municipalities where most of the waste management actually takes place, or they are the ones who are responsible for managing waste in that particular location, they're not able to plan their logistics very well, or they're not able to plan their systems very well. So those are the first things we recommend, that we need to figure good data collection systems, also using the guidelines that are provided by a UNEP or a UN Habitat. Specifically, if you look at the 11.6.1 SDG indicator, There is a very nice methodology that's been developed by UN Habitat called the Waste by Cities tool to collect that data at that level. And so just going back to the question here, it says that policymakers are not taking it and translating it into action. And this is quite because when you look at a global outlook, you're looking at the trends of what's going to happen globally with municipal solid waste. You saw we analyzed 3 different scenarios. We looked at waste management as usual. Then we said, okay, what if we bring waste under control? And then moving on to a circular waste management scenario. And each of these had costs associated to it. And they were then hidden costs, which Zoe also mentioned, which were not accounted for. But then at a global level, we're only looking at these trends. As I mentioned, that the solutions will have to be very local, and it will never be a one-size-fits-all. We looked at the Caribbean case from the other presenters, and you can see that island nations have very unique challenges when it comes to managing and handling their waste. And if you look to a bigger country, say you're looking at an India, or you're looking at a country in Africa, they face completely different challenges, whether it's about affordability of collection systems, whether it's what kind of technology has to be deployed, and so on and so forth. So what we've seen is that these recommendations that we come up with haven't been always translated into action. But in this outlook, we've made very sure that we are actually addressing in our recommendation section in the last chapter different entities and different stakeholders, whether it's multilateral development banks, philanthropic organizations, citizens such as us, national governments, sub-national governments, and also the producers and retailers. Without everybody on the table, I don't think we can actually have a very successful implementation of any of our recommendations. So that's what I have to say about that. But let me also share the link in case people haven't seen where the outlook is. It's freely available on ISWA website as well as UNEP's website. Let me just share it with everybody here in the meeting. Oh, sorry. I thought you could see me. Okay, yes. Here I am. But thank you.
Thank you very much.
From here,
yeah, go ahead. Maria, you're muted.
Apologies. No, just that I wanted to pick up from here regarding the question from BCRC from China on recognizing priority tasks for different cities in Asia and the Pacific to conduct zero waste initiatives, because this is very much a combination from what both Ms. King and Ms. Ramola have brought up, that indeed we need the data and we need the tools for the data, and the UN Habitat Zero Waste cities tool is a very good baseline. But as the data will not be there will always be challenges with also the available data and compiling that. So we then learning from best practices from cities, from other situations, and also extensive stakeholder consultations is something that we see, that what are the priorities that the stakeholders in the field are prioritizing, have the capacity to do, to start building the incentives for zero waste initiatives, so that they are actually feeding in the interests of the different stakeholders and strengthening the roots like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all 3 of our panelists, with Aditi representing Zoe. I must say thank you, of course, to Ms. King and Maria for contributing so gratefully, from presenting with music, to presenting about food and how sustainable lifestyle, and how our lifestyle can contribute in a way to going towards zero waste, in a sense. So thank you very much again. We're now moving to session 2 for the questions that we've not been able to answer at this segment. We're running out of time a bit, and so we now have to rush to session 2. And of course, thank you all for joining so far. Please stay on to listen to the other youth presentation at this point in time, and then we'll just move quickly. So, and At this point, we'll run quickly into the present panel discussion with young people who are leading charge towards zero waste. I must say thanks, of course, to Children Major Group for having this segment, including youth voices representing regions like Africa, Asia Pacific, Caribbean, Europe, and small island states. And I'll be the one to bridge the gap with this aspect of the presentation. We'll now go over to Nav will start the discussion as I would have started earlier to say that the time zones are a bit challenging. Nav is a renowned Indian environmental activist and social entrepreneur. At age 11 years old, he co-founded one of the highly successful NGO, One Step Greener, alongside his brother Vihan. So at this point in time, I would love to hear from you, Nav, and I'll hand over the floor to you at this, and then we'll go to the other speakers. Over to you, Nav.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I hope you can all see my presentation. So I found an NGO called One Step Greener, and One Step Greener essentially works towards three things: waste management, waste recycling, and tree plantations. And essentially, what happened was that I was 11 years old, my brother was 13 years old, and when anybody really listens to us about us talking about an initiative, or when we're talking about an NGO we started on waste management, the first question we get asked is, why did you start this initiative? Why would an 11-year-old and 13-year-old boy from India start an NGO about waste management? And so it really, goes back to the incident in 2017 where a landfill, which was almost 120 meters tall, collapsed, caught on fire, killed 2 people, and released tons and tons of toxic gases. And so, my brother's asthmatic, and essentially what happened was, due to the air pollution, during that time he was hospitalized, and I had to see him suffer in the hospital, and for the next couple of months it just kept on getting worse. And that's when we realized that, waste is not just something which you see, but is in fact has a tangible impact on livelihoods. And we researched and realized that, in my hometown of Delhi, which is one of the world's most polluted cities, that 30% of Delhi's air pollution is directly or indirectly caused by waste. And when we saw this alarming figure, we realized that, why is this the case? Why is it that these kids are segregating our waste from their bare hands, their wet waste, their dry waste, trying to earn a little bit of money to be able to provide and eat the next meal? And we realized that there's two reasons for this. The first reason is that even if you segregate your waste, the government will come pick up the waste, mix the waste, and send it to landfills. And the second reason is that people who are consuming the waste, us, we aren't conscious, A, about what we're consuming, but B, also not conscious about how to segregate our waste. And that's when we realized that there has to be a step-by-step approach to combat this solution. And so we developed a strategy 6 years ago, and it essentially starts with education. We teach people the importance of waste, what to segregate and why to segregate. We teach them why it's so important to change your behavior. And we're like, okay, hey, you know the problem. Now, here's the solution. We will provide you a free of cost waste pickup to your household, collecting all dry recyclables. And so we do that pickup where we're collecting, metals, cardboards, e-waste, plastics, everything which you can possibly imagine, and making sure it gets recycled. And we'll take it back to our warehouse where we'll employ those same informal workers to the formal economy, giving them bank accounts, an identity card, a stable source of income. And then through that waste segregation, we then manufacture and recycle it as well, creating products out of it and trying to create that circular economy, making sure that not only are we creating a sustainable business, but also being able to empower communities and bring lasting change. And so, through these past 6 years, education, we've been able to talk and teach more than 300,000 students on the impact and importance that waste segregation has on our daily lives. We've also been able, we started from one home, which was obviously our home, and we grew from that one house to, servicing now over 20,000 households in 7 cities. and being able to give employment to 60 of these informal workers within our organization and providing them and their families with a livelihood. Moreover, we've also been able to make this pickup service. Earlier, it was paid. Now we've been able to make it free of cost. And also, we're paying some people in marginalized sectors to actually pick up and collect that waste to ensure that the maximum amount of segregation and recycling is being taken place. And these past 6 years, we've been able to recycle over 600,000 kgs of waste. We've been able to, just by recycling, saved 45,000 trees, almost saved 20 million liters of water, and and honestly generated enough energy to power 14, this is around 1.4 million homes for a whole day. And it just tells me one very simple thing, is that if two brothers from Delhi, India, and one house can make such a big impact, think about all of the 150 people in this meeting room can make today. If each and every single one of you even start segregating yourself and tell 10 other people, you will be saving 10 million liters of water just by making sure that you're segregating your waste and recycling your waste. And so I urge all of you to volunteer with us, to help us reach out to as many people as you can. And even if we aren't in your country, we aren't in your locality, start somewhere. Make that one step. Go one step towards a greener future. Thank you so much for having me. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you very much, Nav. At this point in time, we just started this aspect of the conversation where young people are showcasing what they have been doing, and as you can see, we've started like from a very, very long time ago. It's not just now we engaging in action towards zero waste. Is Nabule here on the call so that we can jump right into our comments or on our presentation at this point in time? Is she on the call with us?
Yes, 100%.
Nabule?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay, over to you, Nabule.
Great. I'd just like to share my screen quickly. And I want to really just pick up on a note that Zoe had made when she spoke about how pollution knows no bounds. I am resonating on that energy 100%. I will present to you guys our environmental education program, which is called Captain Fantastic. We are on a mission to turn little kids into plastic pirates that believe in a mindset of no trash but treasure. I'm not going to bore you guys too much with the statistics because I believe that we're well acquainted with that by now. But I'm going to go straight into our ethos, which is we can continue to clean up plastic from our environments, but we honestly believe as Captain Plastic that it would be better for us to raise a society of children that believe that plastic shouldn't even be out there in the environment. So we believe in behavioral change. How can we influence a society or a generational cohort of children that will grow up and become stewards of the environment in the next 10 to 15 years, perhaps? So that's what our program is primarily about. We teach kids a no trash but treasure mindset, and our big, hairy, audacious goal is to reach approximately 1 million learners by 2030. Very ambitious, but we are well on our way to doing that. And we are obviously working towards the Sustainable Development Goals, and these are some of the ones that we have specifically highlighted. I'm going to present to you guys our iota sensitization campaign, which is, it has to do with the SID specifically. We have had the honor to work with the World Bank as well as the Indian Ocean Commission over the past 10 months on a sensitization campaign where we use experimental education to influence learners between the ages of approximately 8 years to 13 years. And we really do try to enforce the mindsets of no trash but treasure with them. So for this project that we're doing with the IODIS, it is 10-month project in the year 2030, in the year 2023. And our goal is to reach 15,000 to 18,000 learners across the Indian Ocean.
I think we've lost Nabule. Her connectivity is giving some issues. I'm not sure if she's back on the call with us. Let's just wait a few. Okay, she's lost. She fell off. All right, I think we may have to, in case she comes back on, we'll give her a few more minutes. We'll give her a few more minutes if possible to speak and finish our presentation. At this time, we may have to go over to Rabib to continue our presentation, to start our presentation. Rabib is one of our, distinguished young activists in a sense. She's a journalist and environmental advocate with a strong focus on addressing plastic pollution. She's actively engaged in negotiations related to the plastic treaty, and her work involves raising awareness about the environmental impact of plastic pollution, promoting policies to reduce plastic waste, and advocating for the implementation of effective recycling and waste management practices through grassroots efforts and community management. It's also important to note that Rabib is one of those young people who are very involved in the Children and Youth Major Group engagement with the Science Policy Panel, the process open-ended working group to create a science policy panel on the prevention of pollution and also chemicals and waste. So she is very much involved in that process, and the Children Major Group is involved in that process. And this process is also tied into the work that that Children Major Group is doing, and also this forum in a sense. So Rabib, I'll hand over to you right now.
Thank you so much, Mario. So glad to be here today with you and to speak about this important issue that we are all facing in Asia, in Caribbean, in Africa, in Europe, in the United States. Everywhere we are facing this issue of waste management. And today I'll be glad to share my experience as a journalist and also a young activist regarding this issue. First of all, I would like Mario to start with some numbers to give you about the situation of waste management in Africa. Well, the population in Africa is really increasing. And let's say that according to recent statistic, the population is growing by around 3.5% per annual rate. And at the same time, the production of waste in Africa is expected to reach 244 million tons per year by next year, 2025. And it's estimated that 70 to 80% of solid waste generated is recyclable, but only 4% of solid waste is currently recycled. At the same time, the African continent is really facing a huge issue regarding the food consumption. In Africa, it's estimated that 100 million people are facing catastrophic level of food insecurity in 2020. At the same time, significant volumes of food are lost after harvest in sub-Saharan Africa each year, estimated at around $4 billion worth for grain alone. So the challenge of waste management is a huge challenge and issue in the African continent, including my country. I'm from Tunisia, just to remind you. So it's also a challenge in Tunisia because we generate over 2.5 million tons of waste annually with a daily increase of approximately 3%. But only a small fraction, around 4 to 7%, is recyclable due to the lack of selective waste collection. And because of that, we had so many issues with the management of waste. And let's say that the method that we are using today in Tunisia is inefficient, landfilling, which has proven ineffective to the limited landfill capacity, and many landfills have reached their maximum capacity, leading to closures. And these landfills not only occupy vast land areas, but also emit methane, a potent greenhouse gas contributing to the climate change. And because of that, we have a huge crisis starting from 2019. So we had several protests that were led by young people, young activists. So I'm showing you a picture coming from Jerba. This is an island in the south of Tunisia. We call it a waste strike at that time. So we had many protesters every day, and we had even general strike for the first time in this island. So at the same time, the good thing during this protest or crisis that we saw a huge youth mobilization. And I was working as a journalist at that time, and my activism helped me a lot to understand the issue of waste management. And I was so glad to cover these protests and this issue, because my role is not like an environmental activist, but as a journalist. But my activism helped me a lot as a journalist, and that's why I from 2019 I was focusing more on the climate issue and the environmental crisis. This also, the second picture is showing the crisis, the protest that.
I'm not sure she is Robert still with us. I think she fell off as well. Can you recheck with us, Daniel? I'm not sure. I think she fell off.
Yes, she did.
She fell off as well. So we may have to go to our next presenter. I'm not sure what is happening. Matthias, are you able to start your presentation at this point?
Yeah. I will share. Thank you, Mario. I will share my presentation. So yes, thank you, Mario, for this opportunity to present Level Recycle, your solution for waste management in Lebanon. In 2015, Lebanon experienced a serious waste crisis following the closure of the country's largest landfill. Due to a falling state and therefore inactive public authorities, the waste only piled up in the street for months. Since 2019, the situation has worsened due to several factors, economic and political. Lebanon faced two main problems regarding waste management. Firstly, there are no public measures concerning recycling, and secondly, people don't know how to sort or where to bring the recyclable. As a community-based initiative, Level Recycle aims to promote waste reduction, recycling, and a sustainable lifestyle, while contributing to the reduction of waste management, the increase of recycling accessibility, citizen awareness raising relating to environmental protection, and the provision also of employment opportunities to vulnerable population, including women and youth, both Lebanese and refugees. With over 10,000 tons of recyclable collected from 60,000 app users in Beirut, Level Recycle has had a dynamic journey over the past few years. In 2017, the Level Recycle application was created, which enabled Level Recycle to recruit many drivers, including young people, and including also 20 women from vulnerable communities who cook daily for them. The focus on sustainability and innovative solutions garnered recognition in 2020 when Level Recycle was selected by Forbes Middle East as one of the top 10 most sustainable startups in the Middle East. In 2022, Level Recycle was able to set up 7 community recycling shops where users can drop off their recyclables by receiving an awareness of the importance of recycling. The expansion of this network of recycling shops reflects the program's commitment to creating a sustainable future and providing communities with the resources they need to reduce waste and promote recycling. Through their efforts, Live Love Recycle is becoming a leading example in the field of sustainable development, and an inspiration also for others looking to create a positive change. To finish on the ecological level, we respond to 2 UN SDGs, sustainable city and communities, and also climate action. We aim to make recycling easier by offering a convenient and rapid service. Your objective is to open 12 shops by the end of 2024, one in each of the 12 Beirut districts, in order to optimize your process and reduce also your transportation, time cost, and CO2 emissions. The objective is also social. We are part of a dynamic to reduce poverty and precarious employment. By opening one shop, we provide 6 direct and indirect jobs for people coming from vulnerable communities. So that's why we aim to promote sustainable, inclusive, and steady economic growth and decent work for all your employees. Thank you. This is the different partners of Live Love Recycle. So we work with institutions, but also with the organization, private organization. And you can follow activities on Live Love Recycle on Instagram with a QR code. And thank you for your time, and thank you for having me, Mario.
Thank you very much, Matthias, for joining us as well. That's a very good presentation. It shows that we have young people who are, playing their part in contributing towards a zero waste future. We now have back with us Nabule and Rabeb. I think let us go right back to Nabule so she can continue with finishing her presentation, and then we'll jump right back to Rabeb, and then we'll go right into the question and answer segment. At this point in time, if you do have any burning questions, please do write them in the chat so that we can continue. We're a bit running over time, but we just need to, ensure that we give enough time for people to share their perspective and initiatives. If you have any questions, please just share them in the question and answer segment on the Zoom feature. Thank you. Over to you, Nabule.
Thank you so much, Mario. Sorry for the interruption. So our challenge has been the fact that there are over 400 million tons of plastics that go into production year on year, and 12 million tons of those plastics end up in the ocean. And the most concerning thing about it is that 80% of this is from human activity. So we do have a responsibility to sort of ensure that these plastics don't go into our oceans. From all of our work, we have found that there are a couple of key things that contribute to this, and they're not limited to the fact that people don't understand the impacts of plastic pollution, and also that people we do understand are not getting adequate waste management services in some communities. And we've also found that a big thing has been that people don't feel connected to the environment. And it's more of a situation of, if you don't feel connected to the environment, then how will you take care of it at the end of the day, right? So that's one of the key issues that we face when it comes to the landscape of plastic pollution. I'm not sure, Mario, if you can move on to the next slide, because it's not moving on my end.
Is someone from the technical team able to assist here? I'm not able to move from my end as well. I think if we're still having technical difficulties, you can maybe just continue to share, just opening the presentation, and then we'll finish as soon as possible.
Or what I'd rather do, I can just speak us through the presentation. It's not a.
Okay, great. That'll be great. That'll be great as well. You can continue.
Okay, cool. So our presentation, essentially, we just, or the program rather, speaks about how
we can continue to clean up plastic pollution from the environment, but it would be so much better if we could change the behaviors altogether. So can we create a cohort of people or individuals that have a mindset where they are not littering in the first place, right? So we came up with the concept of Captain Fin Plastic for that sense. And we are trying to instill in generations a no trash but treasure mindset. Our big, hairy, audacious goal is to reach 1,000,000 learners with environmental education by 2030. So at least can we have a cohort of people that are so environmentally conscious that they aren't throwing litter, and we don't need to get to a point that we need to do cleanups and things of that order. So then we had this idea, and we had a great opportunity to work in the SIDS, so around the IODIS, which is the African Indian Ocean Developing Island States, on a sensitization campaign through a World Bank funded project. We got the great opportunity to be able to sensitize more than 12,500 learners and also provide them with environmental literacy materials where they could really have an opportunity to not only get the literacy in terms of reading, but also an understanding of what environmental concepts are through our Captain Fin Plastic program. Captain Fin Plastic is like the Spider-Man of today, but the Spider-Man of today in the sense that he goes out into societies and he teaches kids how to become superheroes of the environment. And we believe that if you use that concept of a superhero, you can really get into the minds of the kids and get them to sort of get into a space where they believe that they themselves are heroes and they can take upon sort of the responsibility of creating safer communities, as well as communities that are free of litter. So they sort of take on that responsibility of being stewards of the environment. So that's what we sort of try to instill in them. So we underwent this project for about a 12-month period. And in that 12-month period, we did pre and post tests where we really looked into the kids when we came into the school, and we had developed tests that we had asked kids if they knew anything, like, you know, like a standard base of, do you know anything about plastic pollution? We had summative and formative tests, and from those summative and formative tests, we then produced a environmental education curriculum that we gave to them. After we gave them that curriculum, we then gave the kids the same test in order for us to compare the results to see if we had made any impact in the space. I think that what I'm trying to allude to, I mean, it would be incredible if I had the slides to demonstrate this to you, but what I'm trying to allude to you is that it's very important for us to get into a space and understand what the baseline is. And the baseline when we were in the SIDS was that environmental education was not in the educational curriculum itself. So what we were trying to do was to incept concepts of environmental education through our Captain Fin Plastic program that works on a very low cost situation. So it is a book. It is a Spider-Man that goes into the classrooms, and then you can use that material as something that you can incorporate into the curriculum. But the basis of it all is that kids get to learn how to read, how to comprehend. But what they're reading and what they are comprehending, most importantly, is environmental literacy concepts. And we believe that if we can at least get to that generation, that is the youngest, you know, at your base, your grade 3 or your 9-year-olds. And if you can instill concepts of environmental literacy in them as young as you can, then you can create a cohort of people that will elevate and become the future generations that will be the stewards of the conversations that are centered around environmental literacy. I hope that I'm articulating myself as best as I can. But then also it's very important for us to also understand that we are based where we are based, and we are doing our work within the SIDS. So what we wanted to do was really go into all of the countries that we were working in and upskill the people that are there, people that understood the local context, people that knew what the local birds were, people that knew, these are all characters that are in our book, people that understood the language, the teaching methodologies and all of that. So all of our work also goes into that when we consider our licensing module. We really, really try to adapt all of the materials that we have into the local context. For example, if we're going into a place like Malagasy, we don't want to impose what it is that we know back here in South Africa, for example. We want to go into Malagasy and ensure that the environmental literacy that we are giving to that cohort of people is in a language that they understand. And if it's a book or if it's a character or if whatever the case it may be, we try to ensure that we localize it as much as we can. And this is the same for Cape Verde, it's the same for Guinea-Bissau. So we would put in the work in terms of localizing that, because the most important thing about environmental education is that if you want to get the message across, you need to, as far as you can, make sure that people understand the language that you are speaking. And with Captain Fantastic, that is really what we're trying to do. We're trying to simplify the language. We're trying to instill it in this cohort of people. And then we hope that in the next 10 to 15 years, these are the people that will become the custodians of the environmental movement itself. I think I'll leave it there, and I'm open to any questions. I sincerely apologize for the fact that our presentation could not run as we would have liked it to.
Thank you very much, Nabule. So quickly, we'll have Rabeb quickly complete our aspect of the presentation as she would have left a bit earlier. So Rabule, Rabeb, over to you, and then we'll quickly rush into our third segment before we move on.
Thank you so much, Mario, and I'm sorry for the interruption. So I was talking about the challenges and the issue of waste management, not only in Africa, but also everywhere, in every continent. And the African continent, my country, Tunisia, is one of the countries that is really struggling with the waste management. Tunisia only generates over 2.5 million tons of waste annually, but only around between 4 and 7% are recycled. And this is due to the lack of selective waste collection. And when it comes to the measures that we take in Tunisia for the waste management, it's focusing on landfilling, which was ineffective due to the limited landfill capacity. And these landfills not only occupy vast land areas, but also emit methane, which is a greenhouse gas that contribute to the climate change. And because of the lack of the waste management, we had we call it waste protest or waste crisis. A group of young people took the street against the government in Medellin, in Jerba, and started a protest. It was a protest followed by a strike in the island of Jerba in the government of Medellin because of the waste crisis. So I'm sharing with you some pictures. This is this was like mainly launched by young people, but then all the inhabitants took part of this protest to call for a better waste management and real regulation in order to face this issue of waste management in Tunisia. In my case, I started focusing on the environmental issue and the waste management with this waste crisis in 2019, and my activism, my experience in civil society and in the major groups helped me a lot to understand the issue of waste management. And I covered this protest, and from that experience, I launched several initiatives to raise awareness about the issue of waste, and also raise awareness about the environmental issue in general. I'm sharing with you a picture. This is one of the initiatives I did to clean the beach. So my journey, let's say, began with local actions to clean beaches and to raise awareness about the devastating effects of plastic waste and plastic pollution in my country, Tunisia. These early experiences raised a passion within me to tackle larger challenges and make a real difference in the world. And let's say one of the most significant milestones in my advocacy journey was my participation with the children and youth major group in the negotiation on the plastic treaty in Paris and also in Kenya. So I had the chance with the children and major group to follow the negotiations on the plastic treaty, and this experience was transformative for me as it allowed me to contribute as a young activist and advocate for stronger measures to reduce plastic pollution and promote reusing. Participating in these negotiations really boosted my negotiation skills also and provided me with a deeper understanding of international policy processes at the importance of collaboration and networking in driving change. During these negotiations, we as a children and youth major group, we called for a comprehensive treaty with enforceable global targets to eliminate plastic pollution by 2035. And also we called that this treaty should englobe the entire life cycle of plastics and be free from ambiguity in the text. We called also for immediate action that should be taken to eliminate hazardous, unnecessary, and single-use plastics, and we advocated for a transition to a circular economy based on indigenous knowledge and science, emphasizing the importance of reduction this plastic waste and the use of reuse, not recycling, reuse especially. And let's say that this experience has shaped me as an advocate and has given me the skills and the confidence to continue fighting against the plastic pollution and for a better waste management. And from plastic pollution to the nitrogen pollution. So I had a chance to take part of the nitrogen working group, but before that, as a children and youth major group, we organized several capacity building for our group to talk about the nitrogen waste, especially ammonia, to talk about nitrogen pollution. And we called as a group for actions to sustainable nitrogen management to address the issue of nitrogen waste and emissions. And this was crucial for us to take part of this working group to ensure a sustainable future for all generations. And as a group, as a children and youth major group, we advocated for the promotion of integrated and sustainable management approaches that consider the entire cycle of the nitrogen from production to consumption to disposal. And this was my experience with the nitrogen working group. I'm sharing with you another picture. We are the youth, the children youth major group, and here we are with Paul from the farmer working group. So it was a great experience for me as a youth advocate to take part of the negotiations and also with the nitrogen working group, because there is not enough attention regarding the nitrogen waste. And from the nitrogen pollution to UNEP 6, always with the children and youth major group, we advocated for the inclusion of the nitrogen pollution in the discussion on the air pollution resolution, recognizing its significant impact on air quality and the environment. My advocacy was likely involved raising awareness among delegates about the detrimental effects of nitrogen pollutions. And we also as a children and youth major group, we also followed other resolutions during UNEA 6, but personally, I was focusing more on air pollution, and I talked more about the nitrogen pollution, because we unfortunately, we don't have enough attention regarding the nitrogen waste and the nitrogen pollution. This is globally, I tried to be brief because I know that we don't have enough time. So this is my experience from the plastic treaty to the nitrogen working group to UNEA 6. And I'm glad to receive your question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for completing your presentation. That was very extensive, outlining the role of children in major group in multilateral processes, particularly on chemicals and waste and pollution prevention. Now, I would like to inform you that there will be a third segment, which is more exciting, and it's focused more on different issues related to be it plastic pollution or waste or zero waste. And of course, we'll have a presentation by the name of Ashley. Or before that, I would like all speakers who are on this call to turn on their microphone so that we can at least take a photo with all the speakers who joined earlier. Or if you're on the call and you're a speaker, would like to take a photo with you, so please do turn on your microphone, your camera, so that we can have a photo with you. So if you're on the call near a speaker, please do open your camera so that we can have a photo with you. All the speakers, if you joined early today and you were a speaker, please to turn on your camera so that we can have a photo with you. This is a family pic. Yay!
Okay, is mine.
Are we ready? Are we finished with the photo? Remember, your camera is off. Mayoka? Oh, okay, sorry.
Just one more, because
Can you
we are
see me?
a lot of people.
Yes. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Cheers.
Are we good to go now?
Yes, good to go. Thank you all.
Thank you all for contributing to the first segment of this session, International Youth Forum. We'll now hand over to Ashley Blight for the third segment. Throughout our professional tenure, Ashley has worked with youth at both the primary and secondary level, along with those from the community of persons with disabilities. She remains a youth and special needs advocate at heart, while managing her current position as a project associate for the ACP MEA's 3 project at the UNEP Caribbean Convention Secretariat. Given her side passion for content creation, she now assists the Secretariat in the area of communications and seeks to find ways to get more youth interested in the work of UNEP. Ashley, we'll now hand over to you, and a very much thank you to each and every one. We'll also collect your questions in the chat for if on any of the presentations which happened earlier. We're now handing over to Ashley, who will give us a very good overview of UNEP and their Beast Plastic Pollution campaign. Over to you, Ashley, and their support team. And I also want to say thank you to the technical team that have been working with us, and thank you all for joining with us. I am Mario, the 6th focal point for the Children in the Major Group. Handing over now to Ashley. Have a good everyone.